Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at the Bugs 3H drone from MJX RC. This drone is a precise high-speed flyer with brushless motors. It has optional altitude hold. It has HD Wi-Fi FPV streaming and a crystal clear HD camera. So let's take a closer look at this drone. Now the drone comes in this cool yet simple square black box here, and it says Bugs 3H, and the H being the height hold or altitude hold mode. This is from MJX RC, and you can see there it's the Bugs, and it's for 14 plus. And right here it says it has altitude hold mode, free to switch, and professional mode. So basically with this quadcopter you can change between altitude hold or not having altitude hold and having manual throttle management here. And I believe there are three variations or three models of this quadcopter. I think there's a non-camera version, and then we have a 720p camera version, or the C5000, and then there's a 1080p 5G camera version, which is the C6000, and this one is also 5G as well for your mobile device live streaming. Right here at the back of the box we have another view of the quadcopter showing its camera mounted at the bottom and the headlight turned on there. And right here it says it has independent ESCs, brushless motors, 1806 1800 kV motors, so very powerful fast motors, and 2.4 gigahertz communication, and it also has a range alarm if it goes out of range. And here on the side we can see the transmitter. So very neat packaging from MJX here. It has the Bugs 3 icon here at the top. So now let's open her up and see what we've got inside here. Let's see here. Right away here at the top we have the instruction manuals, and as you can see this is the C6000 model, which includes the 1080p Wi-Fi streaming camera, and it streams in 5G Wi-Fi. So that's pretty cool. Here are a bunch of stickers and things here in the instruction bag here, so pretty cool. So now let's pull out this styrofoam here. All right. Okay, so we have that there. Now let's set the box down. So here we have the drone here. Pretty nice. And see, we have the battery right here, and this is a 7.4 volt 1800 milliamp LiPo battery, and we have its charger right here. It's a balance charger and a micro USB cable in there as well. Here's the drone itself, very nice looking, very cool. We'll put that there. Underneath is the transmitter, so we'll take a look at that soon. Here is the 1080p 5G camera with its micro USB cable that you connect to the bottom of the quadcopter. Very nice. Here we have its camera mount for the bottom of the quadcopter. Very cool. Here we have the cell phone or mobile device mount that you would put onto the transmitter, so it's very nice. Here's a little bag with a wrench, screwdriver, some screws, some pads there, so some extra things there needed for some of the installation on here. Here are the propeller guards, very cool. Here are the propellers and spare propellers, so two sets of propellers, very nice. And right here we have the landing legs, very nice. Then install those. And at the bottom we have the transmitter right here. So really cool transmitter with folding antennas here. Very nice. So, all right, so let's organize all this and take one last look at the contents of the box. Now, taking a last look at the contents of the box, we have the drone itself, its two set of propellers, its landing legs, its mount for the camera. Here is its 1080p 5G camera with its micro USB cable, and that depends on the model you get, whether it be a 720p or maybe no camera at all. We have the mobile device mount here that you would put on the transmitter to put your mobile device. The Propeller Guards, the 7.4 volt 1800 milliamp LiPo battery, its balanced charger with its included micro USB cable, a wrench, a screwdriver, 10 screws to install the landing legs onto the quadcopter, some padding to pad the camera within the mount, the transmitter, and instruction manuals, brochures, quick start guide, and some stickers. So that's essentially the contents of the box. Now let's take a closer look at the drone. Taking a closer look at the drone, this is a very sleek looking drone with shades of black and gray on it. As mentioned earlier, this is a brushless motor quadcopter, and it does have optional altitude hold, but it does not have a GPS nor optical flow. But there will be a Bugs 3 Pro version coming out soon that does have GPS and a whole range of additional features. This is the newer model to the Bugs 3. This is the Bugs 3H, and this time around there's optional altitude hold, and there is a bit of a redesign on it. As you can see, in the Bugs 3 there was more of a face here in the front with two eyes. Now this time around there's a big bright LED light right there in the front, and you can still see the Bugs icon right there in red, and it says Bugs. And overall, just a very neat looking quadcopter, very similar to the previous Bugs 3 quadcopter, but with a bit of a redesign, as you can see. Now in terms of the lighting, it is very nice with lighting. We have 4 bright big LEDs on each side there, and they're very bright, and there's a very bright one right here in the front, so very good light for either night flying or orientation. There is some installation required if you want to install the landing legs right here at the bottom. You have to screw in the landing legs, and even those may be optional, as there are already smaller built-in landing legs on each corner of the quadcopter. So if you are not going to mount a camera at the bottom, then you could possibly fly it using the smaller landing legs there, which will give it a thinner, lighter profile. But definitely if you're going to mount the camera, you would need the longer landing legs here to support the camera there at the bottom. Now going a little over the camera, in this model we have the 5G Wi-Fi 1080p camera, and it does have a wide angle lens, and it is an HD camera with somewhere around 5 to 8 megapixels. I'm not exactly sure, but definitely a pretty clear image. And it does take a micro USB cable right there to power it up and to possibly generate the 5G Wi-Fi with this antenna that's right here on the side. It also takes in an SD card right there, as you can see next to the cable. It's plugged in there. And also the tilting of this camera is very good. You can tilt it just about 90 degrees or a little more. The only thing is you have to manually tilt it. This does not have remote tilting through the transmitter, so you would have to tilt that prior to takeoff. But overall, it has a good mount there that you can slide on and off, and it also has a lock right there. You can lock the mount in there. And a good system here with 5G Wi-Fi and a good camera. You could also put a GoPro or some other type of action camera in this mount. And you may need a little padding right there in the back to put a little padding, as some of these newer action cameras are smaller and might not be the right fit for this, but you could pad it with something and definitely put in a nice action camera right in there. Going over the battery a little bit, this drone takes a 7.4 volt 1800 milliamp 25C LiPo battery. Now, with the included balance charger, this battery does take around 90 minutes or so to charge, but I recommend getting a hobby grade charger to charge this in much less time. Now, with a fully charged battery, you will get a flight time on this of about 15 to 16 minutes, so that's pretty good. Now, it doesn't appear like there's a locking mechanism for the battery in this version of the quadcopter. It mainly just slides in and wedges in there with a padding that's there at the bottom, and then you just plug in the battery. Since there's no on-off switch with this quadcopter, it mainly activates once you plug it in. If you do get another type of battery, make sure that it's a good fit and that it slides in there very well, as it has a very unique way of just wedging in there, and it has to be held in place with the right size of battery. So that's essentially it for the quadcopter. Now let's take a closer look at the transmitter. Now, taking a closer look at the transmitter, this is a very comfortable, nice transmitter. It is a bit of a redesign from the previous Bugs 3. The previous Bugs 3 was more of a square type shape, but this one is more of a curved type shape. So very nice, very comfortable to hold. This transmitter does take 4 AA batteries, as shown here. 4 AA batteries it takes, and this door just connects on. There's no screw or anything to that effect. Now, briefly going over the control, we have our left throttle stick and right rudder stick. We have our on-off switch. We have our directional trims right here, trim switches. This switch right here is very interesting in its mode 2 here. It is spring loaded, so it is altitude hold. But if you switch it here to the top, right now it's no longer spring loaded, so you can fly manually. So that's pretty cool. It's a little more agile if you fly in this mode, while it's a little more secure if you fly it in this mode, in the sense that you don't run the risk of dropping the throttle and the quadcopter falls out of the sky. These buttons right here, this is the light button, so if you press that, there's an additional light that will turn on using its LEDs on the quadcopter, and if you push it, it'll turn that off. This is the motor lock and unlock button, so when you turn on the quadcopter and leave this pressed, it'll allow you to bind and to unlock the motors or to lock them. This is the low and high rates button, so the rates of speed are controlled here, and you'll hear 1 beep for the low rate and 2 beeps for the high rate. There's only 2 rates of speed on this quadcopter. And this is the camera button. A quick tap of that will take a picture, and a long press will start the recording process. And if you long press it again, it'll shut off the recording. And there are a couple more buttons here in the back. We have the L1 and L2 buttons. Now the L2 button is kind of wedged in there, so it's inactive or inoperative. The L1 button is the 3D flips button or rolls, and if you push that you'll hear some beeps, and then you could move the rudder in the direction you want to flip the quadcopter. Now it may not have this function if the camera mount is on the quadcopter. And last but not least, right up here there is a roller, well, supposedly a roll control here, but that's also wedged in and inoperative, so it doesn't work on this quadcopter. And that's probably because MJX uses the same standard transmitter across many of its new models, and I believe its Bugs 5W or its Bugs 3 Pro will have a movable camera, and so I think this is probably to move the camera up and down on its gimbal. And there is a little bit of installation done on this transmitter. You do have to connect this mobile device mount in here, but that's very easy. It's a two-piece set here, so you just connect them together and then just slide this in and connect it, and that'll have your mobile device clip. And there is enough room here for a decent sized mobile device, but definitely not a tablet or maybe even a very large phone. And then there are these foldable antennas here. I'm not sure if they're for aesthetic purposes, but they're there nonetheless. So that's essentially it for the transmitter. A very nice, comfortable transmitter, and it does give the quadcopter a very good range of around 200 to 300 meters of control. So very good range there. So now let's take a look at setting this up for a first-time flight, and let's look at the app. Now, setting this drone up for its first flight is pretty straightforward. Once the battery has been fully charged and inserted into the quadcopter along with its SD card, you would first plug it in like so to turn on the quadcopter. And make sure you push that all the way in. Next, you would push the lock button on the transmitter and turn it on like so, and wait for those beeps. At that point, you should see the lights on the quadcopter be solid, and you should be bound. The next recommended step, as always, is to calibrate your gyros. So make sure that the quadcopter is on the ground level, flat and not moving. And at that point, you would bring both sticks down and to the right for a few seconds until the lights finish blinking. And at that point, your gyros have been calibrated. So you're pretty much ready to take off. You would push the unlock button right there to start the motors in idle mode. And then at that point, you could increase your altitude and take off. But prior to that, you want to set up your Wi-Fi 5G FPV. So you would have to connect to the drone's Wi-Fi and get inside the app. So let's do that step right now. Now, prior to entering the app, of course, you have to connect to the drone's Wi-Fi. So in your mobile device's Wi-Fi settings, you want to look for an entry here that says Bugs, and it'll have a serial number right there. And once you connect to that, which initially there is no default Wi-Fi password or anything to that effect, you want to install and launch this app right here called Bugs Go. Bugs Go. And that's in the Android and iOS app stores. And once you install that, you would launch it. And at that point, you will be greeted with this screen here where you can choose the model that you have, because now this will be compatible with all the Bugs models of quadcopters. And you would look for Bugs 3H. So you would connect to that. Now you do also have the option to view the help files or to enter the photo gallery prior to entering the device. But at this point, we're just going to hit go and enter the device. There are a couple of intro screens here that explain what each icon does, but we'll briefly go over that now. And as you can see, right now we have a live feed with the quadcopter, and this does have a very good range with the Wi-Fi FPV 5G streaming. I would say the range is maybe about a couple hundred meters, so 150 to 200 meters of 5G FPV, so very good range. Now, briefly going over the app a little bit, this icon here will enter your photo gallery where you can see images or videos that you've taken. This will split the screen and get this ready for mobile device FPV goggles where you can see this split. This will flip the screen upside down if necessary. This will remove all the heads-up display so you can just see the FPV. This will give you a brief setting here where you can actually adjust the maximum height that the aircraft will take. And there's a little telemetry there as far as the height in meters of the aircraft. So even though this is not a GPS aircraft, this will still provide you some telemetry as far as height. This icon here will show the aircraft's battery percentage or voltage. This will show the transmitter battery percentage or voltage. This shows the range, or how good of a signal you have with the quadcopter. This shows if it's connected properly with the Wi-Fi. This will take you back to the main screen, and this little icon here will toggle between taking a video or shooting a photograph with this button right there. So that's essentially it for the app. Now, one little note, this transmitter does beep if the aircraft gets out of range, or if it's disconnected, or if the voltage is low on the aircraft. So this has a two-way connection or telemetry to let the transmitter know the status of the aircraft, whether it's out of range or short on voltage. So very cool. Overall, a very nice looking, sleek, precise, fast quadcopter, and it flies very well. So let's take it up for a flight and let's take a look at some footage.